So, Arvind, we are here to talk about agentic AI and how AI is influencing enterprises and service providers. So, can you give an introduction about agentic AI from your standpoint, what you are seeing in the market?
Yeah, so I think the conversation about how enterprises will use agentic AI is very interesting. Okay. What we have seen in the recent past is that the individuals have leveraged AI much more than the enterprises. The reason being that it is very difficult for enterprises to identify what work can be assigned to the humans and what work can be assigned to the agents. So they are discovering through pilots, but really are not able to define the real big opportunity of where agentic AI can add value. Okay. And the reason why they're missing it is that they have been thinking very traditionally because they have seen the IT BPO outsourcing wave. They have seen the digital services wave where more work was handed over to the end customer and you leveraged performance and productivity because of that. AI, unfortunately, changes the whole decision making ability and the judgment support systems. Okay, which means that you have to not talk of velocity of work, but the quality of judgment. And people have very little trust right now that the agentic AI can deliver the trust on judgment because the leaders themselves have been known for taking poor decisions. And the worry for the supervisory board and the executive leadership versus the decision maker, the doers, is that the trust deficit is increasing. And because the individuals are using AI in their personal space, suddenly the gap between a performer and a knowledge worker versus a non-performer and a knowledge worker has reduced. They are delivering similar levels of productivity. So the leadership's biggest challenge is how to define who's better. On top of that, the agentic AI essentially creates three big value adds. It does knowledge compression. It creates a workflow orchestration. And it forces people to be able to take decisions around complex ideas, and leaders should be only reviewing that rather than giving directions. Okay. So I believe the opportunity is very big. It requires that every pilot, you should learn from that pilot not what agentic AI can do, what it will change in our organization to absorb agentic AI.
So, when it comes to the enterprise, I think that when we look at the leadership, what kind of framework they should follow? I mean, is there a set of guidelines that we can kind of highlight how they should move forward in identifying the use cases and getting the implementation done and rolling it out?
Yeah, so I think let's look back how the machines came into our factories, right? When the machines came into the factories, we had to redefine the workspace for the machines and for the human beings. We had to put guardrails around safety for the machines to coexist with human beings so that human beings who are operating the machines don't make mistakes. And we had to retrain the workforce. In the AI world, the difference is that it is maybe not harmful as a machine in terms of physical harm, but it is creating mental stress and mental distress. For some people, it is creating a distressed environment because if they are AI fluent, they can use AI very to their advantage and get AI to do the work, relax, and then deliver their output to the bosses. whereas the other guy struggles, who is more diligent, does not know, is not very fluent in AI, or does not have access to AI tools, is is working very hard to deliver that same output. So the leaders' biggest challenge is when they were comparing human performance in absence of a machine, now they have to compare human performance along with the machine. Okay? And the usage of the machine or the agent, right, is not consistent, unlike in the machine world. Because a machine came and your work was defined. This is what the human being will do, this is what the person will do. So the
So,
agent,
sorry, Arvind, the idea is the agent is going to be more like a digital worker, and the agent is supposed to
yeah, I was
coexist,
coming to
right?
that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so they, what they have to do is, as I said, that the first opportunity is that the leaders can break the silos of the organization, and the agentic AI can create an end-to-end enterprise workforce workflow integration, which is very difficult by having different role holders owning different systems and being guardians of different processes and work activities. So you can cut across the organization to understand and orchestrate the organization activities by using agents. So that is one, because the agents, you can't blame the agent. The human workforce you can blame, and they come up with irrational decisions or emotional outbursts, and that can be useful to derail the projects. Within the agentic AI, you cannot create an emotional outburst of the agentic AI agent, right? The
But
second,
agents do have hallucinations, and we need to put some governance around it. So how
no, no.
do
So guidelines, governance, and guidelines are very important. Okay, but that is will also have linked to the bias of the models that you use. Okay, the algorithms that you use. So you cannot create algorithms saying whatever I tell the agent and whatever the agent produces. So that is an enterprise view. So the leadership has three challenges. One, how to create, to induct agents within the workforce, how to onboard agents within the workforce. Second, how to segregate the responsibilities between the agent and the workforce. Especially, this is going to impact the people who were doing the analysis work, the coordination work, and research work. These three job functions are really getting attacked by the agentic workflow, and they do it a far superior job. So you have to bring in the human in the loop for these functions, where the agent and the human being can coexist. The third, which is very, very important, is that the output that this produces, earlier it took time for the decision for the leader to say, go and examine this area. Okay, give me some analysis, give me some reports. And it would take some time to generate those reports, right? Get various analysts, and multiple analysts had multiple views, right? But that was led by function. The challenge is that agentic AI can give you recommendations, does not give you decisions. And the leader's inability to absorb the recommendations can be the failure of agentic AI growth in a company.
got it? So now with pretty much all the hyperscalers, and there are so many other Silicon Valley companies coming up with agentic uh, tool sets, right? So what would be the criteria for the leadership team to choose one, right? Does it need to be multi-cloud, so what is the criteria for that?
Yeah, so very interestingly, I was reading some reports, and as you know, SRE, FinOps, is very close to the heart. Okay, one of the things that I've learned is that the cost of a transaction, earlier the decision making for leaders was very simple. What was it costing them to doing it today? And by bringing in a new system, what they were changing. And there were three things: velocity, volume, and variability of work. Right? These three are given anyway, but that does not change very dramatically. Okay, it speeds it up. Okay, definitely. It makes it very contextual, very clearly, right? It uses a knowledge base outside of the organization, right? Or assimilates organizational information much better than a human being can do. So the challenge for the leader is, one is going to be the cost of a transaction, because as the transactions increase, okay, so I was reading some, and normally when I do use AI tools, I typically also ask the tool to say, okay, this activity, how much tokens did you use? Okay, so I was doing some work yesterday, and about 20 to 30 pages of document review, I gave it to the AI to ingest, okay, and give me a summarization of the document that I had created, so that I could convert it into a blog subsequently. Okay, because when you write, you think very broadly, and what it told me is that it is used 0.01 cents, which means insignificant number, essentially, or 1 rupee for doing that effort. If I had gone to do that effort, okay, I would have assumed that it would have taken me 4 hours at least, and I can assign a cost to it. But the
And you're
challenge,
happy with the quality of the work.
yes, it did. It did the summarization very well. Did the summarization very well, and it had to do some rework, but that was another half an hour. So it's half an hour versus 4 hours, and 1 rupee spent in addition to the human effort, my salary being or my time being whatever. So there is a trade-off, but the challenge is that this cost increases because I'm not computing the cost of the AI tools. Right? Because the AI tools are given free to me, or I have consumed the subscription for a monthly basis. Right? Now, one interesting data is that the AI in enterprises has increased the cost of cloud by 20%.
Oh.
Okay. The second is it is forcing enterprises to think multi-cloud. Okay. Because the cost, because you may want a model which is, say, from Gemini, but you are aligned to AWS or Azure. Right?
The capabilities are different. So
Capabilities
the
are
model,
different. The need in an AI is very different. Same thing is so what happens is when the price is low, the democratization of AI tools is very critical. But somewhere the companies will bring the price back. For us as individuals, we can decide in a blink of an eye to shut down that service, not consume that service. For an enterprise, if it has started consuming that service, and if the price increase happens, that and because there would be a monopoly or a bias because you've already selected a tool, offloading that tool and moving to another tool will be very difficult. Okay, and that is the cost that they've not. So one area that I do have discussed with you many times, that I think the world is going towards software-based AI models or appliances, right? Because there are so many stacks that are out there. There are so many ways to build the agentic AI, but you need a reasonable software stack which has been tested, right? And which can ingest future LLMs or private LLMs, right? And be managed and be useful to manage both public and private spaces.
So the idea is to have a platform. When you're building the agentic systems, you need to ensure that you use a platform that can kind of switch the models, or even
Correct.
use multiple models at the same time.
Use multiple
So
models, and as well as be able to say deliver, deploy this on my private infrastructure versus a public infrastructure.
makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
And also possibly the location. Right.
Yeah. Location. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Especially
Be-
becoming very competitive. So you might not have the model, available in all the regions. So if
yeah.
you want to tap into a particular capability, you might have to go to a different region.
So it's essentially what will happen is that you will have to use two services
Hmm.
in addition when you become an AI company to use SRE and FinOps simultaneously, not individually,
Mhm.
so that you know how your costs and consumptions are being driven.
Right.
Second, which transactions are creating more
Right.
workloads.
Yeah, because the tokens can be expensive. It can just add up.
Yeah, because I mean, I have still not understood the how they've computed the token cost, but essentially, it looks a very for us as an individual and versus an enterprise. It says, oh, millions of transactions, it costs you so much,
Hmm.
right? And you know, as an individual, you will not do millions. But as I said, the 20-page document consumed 45,000 tokens. Okay,
Right.
while that tokens constructed into 1 rupee of cost, which is all fine, but I'm still worried that which task, and if I do deep thinking, here is something that I had produced and I had asked it to only convert, summarize. But if I allow deep thinking, some activities which will take half an hour or 45 minutes of compute time, I don't know what's the implication of that cost. I've still not tested it out because most of the tools, very interestingly, Rajit, they stopped giving you this transparency
Hmm.
of if you have done an AI activity, what is how many tokens did I consume? So so one leadership has to be worried about current cost and what are they replacing with. Number one, trade off. Number two is ability to move the models and the location and the trade off versus in house versus public, private versus public cloud. That should be the second concern. The third, very clearly in my mind, initially three activities can be used to build the use cases. One is anything to do with analytical work that the organization does, analysis. So an analyst function in a company can be quasi replaced by half an agent. Okay.
Right.
The second is the silos that the organizations have created. You can do workflow orchestration through the silos. I mean, you don't have to go silos across departments. Within a department, an HR system which is doing compensation versus an HR system which is doing learning and development, which is an attendance system, right? Versus a 360-degree review system, right? Within the performance management system, all these systems should be talking to each other to get a complete view and a holistic view of an individual's performance, and also using the emails and the escalation mechanisms that the employee has had or the stress levels that the employees have. So integration with the wellness systems. But the enterprises have to largely be worried about that whatever use cases that they use, are they leveraging and creating an enterprise deepening of thinking, or the thinking has been thrown away, okay, and you are replacing it with cheap workers. The critical thinking capability of the organization cannot be shallowed, in my mind.
Right. So that's where the human in the loop comes into play, right? Too, right?
And because and every leader has to think about that there has to be, like in the army, right, or in the police, the dog or the horse, right? There is a soldier attached to that resource, right, the dog or the horse, as a co-partner, right? They have to respect each other. Similarly, the critical worker has to respect, moderate, train, manage, and take accountability of what that work is done by that agent.
Mhm.
If you
So,
say, oh, the system said so approach will lead to a disaster for an organization.
right. So observability is important, right? So to have accountability, you need proper
Correct.
observability, both in terms of the reasoning and the decision making, and
Correct.
also token usage, right?
Correct.
And I think one other reason I would say is the capability, right? For if you look at the last year, Gemini had made so much progress now, and we don't know what where they're going next. So at a given point, you want to make sure that you have the ability to switch to a new agent because your
Yeah,
agent is only as
absolutely.
smart as the smart
You and I
as
have
the
discussed.
underlying model, right?
Correct. You and I have discussed many times over that there has been a leader for one or few weeks,
Right.
and it has been replaced by another leader.
Another one comes up, yeah. Right.
Correct. The other challenge is that we really are not thinking about the rework that we are doing using AI because we are not satisfied with the output, right? So we get the AI tool, right, to do that work multiple times till we are satisfied.
Mhm.
Yet it is a fractional cost, but that other cost behind that cost, which is the cost of energy that the that infrastructure is going to consume, right, is subsidized today to us.
Mhm.
It's priced free in, at least in the Indian market, with partnerships with the telecom providers. Okay, many tools are made freely available. But once the pricing regime comes into place, what it will do is a very dangerous thing. It can create a company or especially an enterprise or a country to have educated unskilled worker because you have transferred your thinking, your ability to do how to do an activity to an AI model.
Mhm.
You are only focusing on why and what, right?
Right.
And the how is being given to the agent
Right.
in your personal space or in the enterprise space.
Right. And so there was this data privacy issue, right? So now I know hyperscalers are giving you options to run agents within their infrastructure, but the LLMs are shared, right? In where be it Gemini in GCP or Claude in AWS or OpenAI in Azure. So, is there a need for a private LLM like Llama that does it make sense to even invest in a private AI?
Yeah, so look, very few people work on IP that is very, very competitive, on which their businesses hinge. Okay, so let me just take in work. If you're doing a, a back office work, which is anyway outsourced to an outsourcer for doing accounts payable or accounts receivable or logistics planning, right? Or HR services or IT outsourced, you need to think that there is no, very clearly there is no IP involved there. Okay, there is a procedure, there is a policy, there is a procedure, and there is a process that has to be followed by the outsourcer. The policy is owned by the company, The process is owned by the company, the procedure is owned by the company, and the trade-off on the procedure is agreed between the outsourcer and the company which has outsourced this work. Clearly, but so these are apt candidates for outsource for AI work. Okay, and further improvement in productivity. Okay, if you are doing drug development, okay, and doing deep research or a product redesign, rather than working in a well or in a silo and not knowing what's happening, you do work, these companies do work with professors, with universities, with research labs, do collaborate with a select few. The difference is that the information transmission of a model earlier would take 3 years, 5 years, so you had that advantage of that research being unique to yourself, right? Till the product hit the market and someone decomposed your IP, right? You had that 3 to 7 years advantage. That advantage is coming down with AI coming into place. And yes, private LLMs are the way forward for people who are doing deep research and are wanting to work with their private repository or knowledge bases and do not want to use public LLMs. But I do believe that by integrating these two, there is much more value that gets created. The blinker on approach, which means that you are only working with your own data set and not knowing what is happening with the rest of the market, will kill innovation and will kill also improvement initiatives inside the organization. So you need to marry these two. Obviously, each use case has to be viewed very selectively of what kind of guardrails has to be deployed and what amount of internalization of private AI versus public AI.
Now, when it comes to AI in the IT services or IT operations, like you mentioned SRE and FinOps, so do you think that is going to be a trend now where AI will be, you'll be, kind of deploying SRE agents and FinOps agents?
And FinOps is the basis of which AI infrastructure can be set up in an organization. If you do not have this, it's replacing the financial analyst cost, essentially. Okay, so this is a function of saying how much of AI am I using and am I being charged fairly for my AI, and is my AI cost going out of handle, and how do I curtail activities? Okay, because when any new tool gets deployed, if you have done a fixed asset deployment, any n number of usage of that tool does not increase your cost, right?
Right.
But this is a asset, a new tool being deployed which has variability to the cost. And until unless you are able to put the guardrails of cost controllers within the AI models of saying so much of cost is allowed, but if it gets consumed in 15 days, then what next 15 days? You will not use AI.
Right. So it's important to measure and control the usage and put agents in place to watch it and monitor.
Correct. Absolutely. So there will be a new service will come up in managed services for this, of managing and overseeing the consumption of AI. Okay, whether it is leading to a productive outcome or not for the company. The second is work activities like testing, ideation, development, code development are all big. Code development and testing are I think already done with in my mind, because the agents can do a much faster and a better quality job. The opportunity that is there is on ideation, the integration, and the identifying the inhibitors in the adoption of the product, will be the role of the future analyst and IT workers. Okay, so you're not about generating features. Why certain features are not being consumed by an individual, that will require a micro focus. So every IT developer and tester should become a product champion, okay, and lead the adoption of the product in the customer domain and understand its behavior so that the next development activities can be begun.
And you touched on the coding and maintenance of infrastructure, coding the applications. I think that's an area where I think there is a lot of activity now, right? Vibe coding is getting better. There were some issues in between. Now, Claude Code is doing really well. I use it myself. So when it comes to managing the IT using, is there any what will be the framework? Say, and the reason why I'm asking is, if you look at the leadership, in order for them to adopt AI and show value, before they try any business use cases, there is an option to try that in their IT operations to make it efficient. What do you think of that?
So, I mean, let's look at the core IT is already solved, and those big systems are in place. So, AI cannot replace those systems. A white coder cannot replace those systems. They are very complex systems. However, the maintenance of those systems, right, and keeping a watch of those systems, the observability, so much of alerts get generated and no action gets done by the maintenance teams. That will come to a sharper focus to make those systems greener and to generate and to enhance their longevity in the system. Okay, so that's one part of it. Beyond the core systems are the transactional systems, right, which allow within the companies, within the departments or external departments or external organizations or with external world, those systems are candidates for replacement. Okay, and AI tools can generate better UI, better integration, and better security and scalability for those systems. So where the systems are not scaling up, right, they can be useful for replacing as replacement candidates. But digital services systems, you can use white code. So, suppose you want to deploy an estimation tool inside the company, or put it on an estimation tool in your website. I mean, trying to explain how to do an estimation tool and create a functional documentation and then defining the logic. And I have seen that, personally done that for a couple of services firms that I advise. Creating that tool is 3 to 4 days job by playing it over many times over, right? And Claude.ai created a fantastic tool. Okay, that code has now been shipped and being deployed in a private hosted environment.
Wow.
Okay, so that the pricing, the estimation pricing, and the proposaling tool becomes internal. And then we are thinking of releasing that tool for estimation, okay, for the client, so that the client can know how much will this scope of work cost, so that they can declare the budgets internally, and we can also attract traffic.
Right.
So digital services, where there are a lot of information, it has to be ingested, a lot of data has to be populated, right, and it can reduce the work activity and make life simpler, is where white code is fantastic. I mean, even our even our conversation around HubSpot agent
Mhm.
is a conversation in that direction.
Right.
Because listening to uh, a conversation, recorded conversation, and doing 5 actions by that agent was unthought of, right? And
Right.
writing that, creating that complex code by programming would have a huge cost and would have never been initiated.
Mhm.
But with no code, right, that cost has been crashed.
Right. Right. So let's talk about some use cases before we go. Right. So when it comes to you know, process automation, you know, we have seen RPAs, other automation tools. So if- what are the success stories today, right? When you look at the business processes out there today, uh, can you highlight, like, you know, based on what you have seen, two or three use cases where agentic AI is successful?
So, two cases come to my mind. One is pricing, clearly, right?
Mhm.
Anything related in accounting on pricing, accounts payable, accounts receivable, billing is one big opportunity
Mhm.
because it is a complex decision making process and rules change very rapidly, right? And if you were to use a traditional IT development approach or a configuration approach, the tools become prohibitively expensive and not every enterprise can then automate that function.
And
It
maintaining
becomes,
it is also pain, right? That's what we have learned.
and that is where the knowledge of the pricing person,
Mhm.
whether it is in airlines, whether in an IT services organization, whether in a pharma, whether in a retailer organization, the pricing decision is humanistic in nature because how much margin, when did I buy this product, what price did I get this product at, not what is the current price, right?
Mhm.
And thus there are traders who make huge amount of money because they work on lower margins, but they know that they are sitting on a supply chain for a good inventory of a large price products which they bought 3 months ago and the prices were lower
Mhm.
and they've made sufficient margin. So pricing any complex decision, I think, is a successful use case. The second area that I think as a use case, an enterprise-wide use case, is all about supply chain and risk related to supply chain. So, for example, you have placed orders on your suppliers, they have not delivered the product on time, or they have delivered on time, right? The quality of that product that they have delivered uh, haunts you back later because your products where you use those parts have been rejected. Those systems are very difficult to conceive in an organization and requires a lot of leadership time, and thus those systems don't get developed to that level of efficiency and quality. Again, agentic AI is a fantastic use case for that. Wherever it is very difficult to define decision complexity in decision making or give requirements very well articulated, you can use public LLM to collect, regenerate, use RAG tools to generate the specifications, generative AI to use the workflows, and the agentic AI to build the code and deploy the code,
Right.
is as I see it.
Mhm. And how about customer onboarding, uh, um, uh, help desk, things like that?
These are already done.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a no-brainer because they are next level of automation. The difference is what these tools are doing is focusing on the micro elements
Mhm.
rather than the macro elements.
Right.
The impediment for Arvind Mehrotra versus Rajit will be very different. So you can now focus on every individual at a micro level rather than working at an enterprise level
Mhm.
or at a department level. So it is going to make onboarding very successful, and also the adoption resistance can be known at a granular level. Okay, so we are using so many platforms. So I'll give you an example. If you are using a network platform and you have taken a licenses for 100,000 people or 20,000 people, okay, for your enterprise, you do not have enough information whether I should consume this 20. I have been successfully consuming 20,000 licenses, and if I have consumed this, what's been the adoption rate and what's the penetration rate?
Right.
How much features did I use?
Mhm.
And majorly, most of these platforms typically 50 to 60% is the actual consumption. So why aren't you taking the price advantage? Because you did not have those analytics,
Mm.
right?
Right.
So putting tools there can actually improve from a product perspective, drive the adoption,
Mm.
and from a consumer perspective, help you to negotiate better.
So that means it's not only for changing or automating manual processes, can also give you insights, and you
And
can leverage the insights to improve even
correct.
further. Right.
For bringing change better,
Mhm.
for driving the change, or for improving your consumption patterns, or reducing your or controlling your consumption patterns.
Mhm. Right. Now, let's talk about the services industry in India, right? Um, how is it going to work out for us in India when it comes to AI?
So I think the outsourcing industry or the GCC industry in India are people who know, who are doing the how part of it.
Mhm.
They are not involved in the why and the what part of it.
Mhm.
So a lot of people would be still taking instructions of where to deploy agents, right? Or they will be in a position to recommend agents, but the decision authorities will not be in the back end because not enough powers have been transferred to the outsourcer or to the GCCs.
Mhm.
They would be 5 to 20. I do not have an estimate, but I do believe there are 5 to 20% of contracts and GCCs, okay, who have that authority that they can do the what as well.
Mhm.
And thus, they do not have to go back and take the what. And they are in a position to take those decisions, okay,
Right.
which means that they are driving what I call the change, okay, and they are doing the thinking hat, not just the execution hat.
Mhm.
They're doing the selection of pros and cons, and that is why in my experience that one or two companies of GCCs that who reached out to me for doing some AI workshops, and I politely had to decline because I'm not an expert of all the tools out there. But today those companies want to know every tool that is out there because they do not know the corporate thinkers who are sitting in headquarters of their firms what tool they will have a bias for. So they're already trying to build AI capabilities in an unknown area, saying we must know everything, jack of all trades.
Right. So, which that does that mean that when Indian companies that are providing managed services, where they have a little more control over why, right? How and why, right? So, do you think that AI can play a better role in providing
Yes,
better
so
customer service?
absolutely. So wherever the decision to use automation and the tools has been transferred to the outsourcing party
Mhm.
or to the GCC, right?
Yeah,
They can
typically that's the case for managed services, right?
no, not necessarily.
Not always. Yeah.
Not always,
Yeah.
because sometimes you are told to deliver managed services on my infrastructure,
Mm.
on my using my tools.
Using the tools of their choice. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, and so wherever you are driving contracts with an outcome driven approach,
Mm.
right, or a price variability, there the outsourcer and the GCC will have that control.
Mm.
Okay, and managed services is a best area to start with,
Right.
because you can deliver better quality output, and rather than constantly just delivering SLA, you can improve experience and you can deliver better insights.
But in size. That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to move from SLA to experience XLAs and to ILAs, insight, because the insights give the customer the competitive advantage,
Right.
right? And so the insights are the differentiator, that is the intelligence.
So, which means the managed services, and I think this is applicable to services in general, they can improve the quality of service and stay competitive by using agentic AI.
Yeah, so I think, so let's take these three thumb rules.
Mhm.
SLA is the minimum, sustainability, and scalability is what SLA provides.
Right.
Okay, but sometimes you could become very dogmatic in your approach when you are trying to deliver SLAs, that you do not accept changes very rapidly, and you create hurdles in making any changes,
Mhm.
which deteriorates the experience, right? So the
Right.
post the SLA, you have to focus on experience. The transaction gets done, but does it take 4 hours, or can it done happen in 3 minutes? Do I have to explain my entire problem statement, or do you understand enough about me? So that's SLA.
Right.
Sorry, XLA, experience. Okay,
Experience. Right. Yeah.
and that's where most value is getting created.
Mm.
ILA is where AI will create value.
Mm.
Okay, because it is going to say take decisions here to improve productivity, or to reduce cost, or to address the bottlenecks.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's where the ILA has to be focused on from a managed services.
Awesome. So, I think we covered a lot of ground here. So again, Arvind, thanks for joining. Um, maybe in the coming weeks we'll have another session on a specific topic.
Happy to join.
Again, thank you very much. I think very insightful discussions. Thanks again.
Okay, thanks. Bye.